Good evening. We welcome you to our board meeting this evening. At this time, I'll call our meeting to order. If Pastor Mathis is not going to make it this evening because he's caught in traffic, and I do not see Chaplain Mitchell either. So, and Commissioner, we're missing Commissioner Legg also. Okay. All righty then. Okay. Do we want to wait for the town attorney to start, or do we want to go ahead and start? Okay, I'll ask at this time, do we have someone that would open our meeting in prayer? Do it. Okay. At this time, I recognize our town clerk, Ms. Starling, to open our meeting in prayer. If I will, please rise.
Amen.
And just Girl Scout Troop 1107. If you'll come forward. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, if you will remain there, I've got certificates for you. The certificate reads, in recognition and appreciation of your public service to the town of Hope Mills for your participation and leading the pledge of allegiance at the November 15th regular meeting. Eva Alice Elas. Thank you so much. Okay, just stand right here. Charlotte's here. Charlotte's not here. Okay. Penelope. Okay. Thank you. Cecilia. Okay. Ella. Thank you so much. There you go. Layla. Thank you so much. There you go. Lauren. Thank you, Lauren. There you go. Zoe. Zoe. Thank you. There you go. Isabella. Thank you very much. Elena. Thank you. Natalie. Thank you very much. And Chloe? No. Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, what we're trying to do is encourage our youth participation. So Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, and also elementary school students come and do our pledge of allegiance. So we thank you so much for being here this evening. We look forward to coming back. And thank you for being part of our special meeting tonight as far as your presentation. So if you will. At this time, do we have any additions or deletions to our agenda?
Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to remove item D under new business, as the town manager's already addressing that issue.
Okay, item D, remove item D. Do we have any other additions or deletions to our agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. At this time, we have our Appearance Committee to present our Yard of the Month. I'll turn it over to Tina Yosef.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I am the Chair of the Parents Commission, and for November Yard of the Month, we are presenting it to Brian Johnson at 6505 Bretton Woods Drive. I do not see him here, so he must have, could not make it due to prior engagements, but we will have the yard signed to him, and we already have his certificate for him.
Okay, thank you so much. And that's Brian Johnson at 6505 Bretton Woods Drive is our Yard of the Month.
Yes, ma'am.
Next, I'll turn over to Mr. Holland.
Tonight we have Chris Smith and Eddie Massico from Metronet, just to give you an update on the fiber being installed throughout the town. So I'll turn it over to Chris Smith. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor's member of the commission. So updates on Hope Mills. We are looking to start construction probably in the next couple of weeks. So first part of December is when you'll start to see us in the area. It's taken us a little bit longer than we had originally thought, just because of some permitting issues between Duke Polls and NCDOT. We're looking at releasing our first couple of LCPs, or neighborhood areas, in spring of this next year, and then we're hoping about late summer for a completion time. And that's the update that I have for you this evening. Do you have any questions for me?
Anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Back to Mr. Holland again.
Okay, got a lot of presentations tonight. Okay, now you're going to hear from Alan Thompson with Thompson Price. Scott and Adams, our firm that does our annual audit, is going to present to you your audit information. You should have the information there in front of you. The small booklet is the majority of what he's going to be using tonight in the presentation.
So Mayor and Commissioners, good evening. Good to see everyone. This is the book I'll jump from, and if you'd be kind enough to flip over to page 1. The good news tonight is you hire us to issue an opinion on the financial statements as a whole. We issued an unmodified report, which is a quote-unquote clean report. There were no findings, and I'm going to read through some highlights here just to make sure I've done everything I'm supposed to do. On page 1, there were no significant audit findings. On page 2, there were no difficulties encountered in performing the audit, no uncorrected misstatements, no disagreements with management. Management did provide us with a representation letter dated October 30th. We're unaware that management consulted the outside accountants, auditors, etc. And again, no other findings or issues. On page 4, just to give you a little highlight information on all the numbers. Don't say these are all the important numbers, but these are usually some of the critical numbers you want to know. And so what we attempt to do is put those in the first column and then put the 4 prior years beside it, so you have some context of how the town's going. So total fund balance in your general fund is $7,762,000. Restricted fund balance $3,599,000. Restricted and assigned at $620,000, and then total general fund expenditures, including transfers, would be $14,281,000. That's on your bottom as well. And then fund balance available as a percentage is 54.35%, and then unassigned fund balance at $3,543,000, and unassigned fund balance as a percentage at 24.81%. Revenues over and under expenses before contributions and transfers at $42,000 positive. And then you see your cash in your general fund at $4,889,000. The cash there, other governmental, is a little bit distorted because of the timing of the loan proceeds coming in on the capital project. Most of that cash will be expended in the coming year for that specific project. And fund balance again in your general fund at $7.7 million. The same thing is true there on your other governmental funds fund balance. It'll be expended in the coming year. And then you see where your property tax rates have stayed the same for the 5 years presented, and the collection percentage this year at 99.5% is excellent. Total property valuation there at $1,245,000, and then total levy amount there at $5.7 million. You can see your total breakdown of your general fund revenues and expenditures in the next section. And then if you'd be kind enough to flip over to page 5, you can see at the top of that page your total fund balance in blue, restricted and assigned in red. And then the fund balance available there and compared to the group weighted average with yours in blue and the group weighted average in red. And based on last year's information, it's tracking right on target with your group weighted average. And then on page 6, you can see analysis of unassigned fund balance at 24.81%, still a strong percentage. And that'll bump up next year probably. That's really more of an accounting between funds, so it'll bump up next year. On the bottom of analysis of general fund over and under expenditures, you can see where you had a positive number this year. On page 7, cash balances and fund balances, you really just want to focus on your general fund because the timing of that loan is distorting the other governmental funds. But you can see $4.8 million in your general fund cash, and then fund balance at $7.7 million. On page 8, again, you see where your property taxes line up almost exactly with what the group weighted average is. And on the bottom, the same thing is true on the collection percentage. The healthy thing there is you're slightly above the statewide average and the group weighted average. On page 9 at the top, you see your total property value and levy amount trending upwards. On the bottom of that page, you see where your intergovernmental revenue, your sales tax, and your property tax revenues are the dominant forms of revenue from the general fund. And then finally on page 10, public safety is your big expenditure, with general government coming in next. Again, to summarize, there were no findings in the audit. You got a clean report. If you have questions about anything, I'd be happy to entertain them, but I'm happy to entertain them anytime. If you have a question during the year or as you take the audit home and you read through it, please feel free to give me a call. Happy to answer. If I'm out, tell them to give you my cell phone and I'll get you an answer.
Do we have any questions at this time? I want to thank you, and I'd like to thank Mr. Holland and our finance department staff for a great job again. And it's always good to know that we're not only in good shape, but we also, our citizens do a great job in that 99.5% collection rate is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And then the other thing is what balances us out is our sales tax revenue, which again comes from our commercial businesses that we have. They're doing very well. So thank you so much for this evening. And Mr. Holland, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I just wanted to say, a lot of numbers in the actual audit report here, but I will tell you, if there is something that you do want to look at, you may want to read the manager's discussion and analysis, which is the MD&A. It starts on page 11. It's about 5 pages. It's got some good analysis and statistical information in it. And then starting on page 66 in the back is the statistical section, which shows a 10-year picture of the last 10 years worth of information, a lot of different schedules and analysis in the back. So those would probably be, some quick hits on some interesting things to look at in the audit report. We are waiting to hear back for approval from Local Government Commission, the LGC. Once we get approval for that, then we will be submitting it again for the award, their certificate of achievement, financial reporting. We'll submit that again. We have gotten it the last 2 years. I anticipate we should get it again. And if you ever have any questions, of course, always let me know. And I guess that's it. And we will be putting this online for residents to be able to view as well, sometime later this week.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. At this time, I'll ask Mr. Garner if he'll give us our update on our public safety building project.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. It's good to be with you. And I think we have a report, a good report tonight. The building is moving along pretty well. The steel is complete. The masonry is 99% complete. It has not been cleaned. The focus most recently has been on site work in preparing the parking lot for the police area and the drive for replacement of L.A. Priest and Public Safety Way. That will be paved starting in about a week. Brought the gas line on site. They're measuring for the windows to go in. So we're moving right along. Work on the inside of the building continues with electrical, plumbing, and mechanical. We are approximately, we're a little bit over 50% complete. It's a little bit hard to tell because of the convoluted COVID situation we're in. We're not following the normal sequence. We would normally have the roof on by now. We don't have the permanent roof on. We've got on the temporary roof. The apparatus room floor has been placed, but we are moving along. We're on schedule. We do have some items we'd like to talk to you about tonight, of items to add. The first one is for there was a meeting, we had a meeting with the furniture people. I was not there, Drew was there. Drew, do you want to talk to them about that? We did the layout for the furniture. Some of the furniture has electrical items built into it. And,
We did have a meeting with the furniture company looking at the plans, and based on the original idea of how the furniture and the cubicles were going to be laid out, there was some shifting in some of the rooms and some of the how the layout was going to be after the plans got further along. So in meeting with the furniture company, myself and the contractors, there was about 8 receptacles that needed to be added. I think 2 of them needed to be moved and about 8 more added. One we had to add, I think there was 2 maybe on the fire department side, 6 on the police side, and 1 for the EOC meeting room. So it just worked better for how the cubicles are going to be lined up and getting power, because the cubicles are powered. So instead of having cords on the ground, it's either going to be a ceiling drop or the cubicle is going to be against the wall, and it'll have an outlet right there to be able to power the cubicles. So we asked for that, and that's the amount that they came up with.
the amount for that is $6,052. So we need to make a decision about that. The next thing is that we have reviewed the access control. Access control is when you have card entry or a sensor entry into certain areas in the building. And Brad Dean has taken a look at that. He can see a little better now that we've got the building laid out of where he would like to have more secure areas, and he's added some to isolate each component within the department. Previously, we had it at the perimeter so that when you came into the police department, you would be recorded and it would be noted by the computer. But now we've got a further breakdown inside that, and we added 5 or 6 doors, Brad, is that right? And Brad felt that was a strong need to do, and so we are adding that to it. Brad, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, sir. Like Scott said, as we moved along with the building and we're able to visualize a little bit better the layout and what our needs are, and we've had some recent issue at the department that kind of highlighted our need for tiered access, like the investigative section. You'll have access to that or you won't. Just like the administrative section, command staff section. Not everybody needs access to all areas within the PD. And that was just something that we felt like we needed to address with the increased access control, which is 6 more access control points. And that's what the contractor came up with, was $29,111. So that was the price for that.
The third item that we are bringing to you tonight is to repave the parking lot to the rear of Town Hall. that's in bad shape. It needs to be replaced. This is the time to do it. So we have asked for a price to do that. We looked at it, and then we felt like we could maybe negotiate a little bit and get a better deal. We changed the grade of asphalt from heavy commercial to a standard parking lot, which matches the parking lot at the Parks and Rec building. So we'll have the same grade parking lot all the way from down to behind the Parks and Recs building up to Public Safety Way. And so in doing that, we saved about $20,000. And the cost to do that is $62,864. So we think that this is the time to do it because it won't be any cheaper. They're already mobilized. They're here. They can tie it in, and it's the time to do it. So we ask for your approval on that. Scott, would you like to?
Yeah, so all three of these items tonight, the 6 additional doors with controlled access, that wasn't originally part of the plan when they looked at building it. The paving, the fire trucks and heavy equipment's not gonna go on this section, just on the road. So it was designed at 8-inch, 4-inch overlay, and we reduced that to 6-inch sub base, 2-inch overlay. So I don't know if you recognize that when you park here, but there's a section that's, you see the delineation where they have done all of the other parking lots previously. This section between about where the handicapped access is, all the way to the new paving they're doing, that whole parking lot, basically the sub base, all the overtop needs to be redone. You've asked for us to get a quote on that. It was originally like 80.
Originally, it was $82,377.
So with the reconfiguration not being heavy, it's about $62,000, and that's an additional project added into the construction loan, so it's a change that we've requested. And then the first one was
The first one was the electrical connections for the furniture.
So these are in addition to what's on your packet tonight from the previous change orders. These are new items that are being proposed. The other one wasn't ready last meeting, the $62,000 on the paving. So those are things we'd like to have indication if you wish to proceed or not. I think, we've all discussed it, it makes sense to have more controlled access to redo this parking lot while we're here, because it's gonna cost more to mobilize another contractor, get bids, and to repay that. It is something we probably need to do. And then the electrical thing, it makes sense to get it built out, to not have extension cords and do all that when time is now to get those things fixed. I would recommend we do all of them, but again, I know this council doesn't like changes. When we have a budget contingency, we're not even close to 10% of our contingency usage. We are trying to keep it minimal and keep on budget. Scott's doing a great job of finding cost savings, and the contractor has really stepped up. But there still are ongoing issues that we bring them to you because we don't have authority to just approve them. But we wouldn't bring them to you if they were not critical, important things that we felt need to be done. There are several things we have not brought forward that we decided not to do that may or may not have made sense.
And it is important to make timely decisions to keep the progress going. So we
Do
do
we have,
need to make
do
decisions.
we have any
about
board
that.
members that have questions? Or do we have someone that wants to?
Madam Mayor, I have
Yeah.
questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott. Just to clarify, all 3 of these are not contractor, these are town requested, correct?
That is correct.
And this is number change 5. And all 3 of these will be part of change 5?
Yes, sir.
Change order 5? Okay. The one question I have may not be for you, Scott, it's for the other Scott. Did we have any feedback off change order 4 regarding the library sewer line amount of $61,000 regarding the county?
So we're scheduled to meet with the county manager, and Tracy, with the two of them,
Mhm.
we're gonna meet with Drew and myself and, Christian Kaufman. That has not happened yet. I tried to schedule that
Mhm.
before I went out of town. We do have that in the schedule. We wanna meet with them as soon as possible. We're gonna try to reach out, and Drew has talked to him about cost sharing. We would like to see him cost share maybe 50% or something like that nature.
Yeah, we'll be setting that up soon.
Okay, all right.
So we are gonna leave that unattended. We wanna make sure that we reach out, because both sides feel like, kind of the other side that is at fault, but it's kind of a mutual situation we're in, and we are optimistic
Okay. And this the reason I asked that, Scott, is, if we split this, that 30,000 could come back and be applied to change order 5.
Absolutely.
Well, Scott, we got to have them, don't we?
We need it. That's what we need.
All right.
Okay,
I'm with you, and I'll make the motion that we approve it.
I'll second it.
thank you.
Have a motion and a second to approve change order 5. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're on schedule, and we're in budget, so we'll keep marching.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
At this time, I do know where Commissioner Legg is. He is actually with his brother in Kentucky. And so he is not going to be here this evening, so I'll go back and pick up official comments. And I'll start with Commissioner Marley.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't really have anything tonight other than I'd just like to say thank you to everybody that came out on election day and voted. It's always good to see people come out and vote and, make a difference in their town. But that's all I have right now.
Mayor Pro Tem McCray.
I'd like to echo what Commissioner Marley said. Thank you for all the citizens that came out and exercised their right to vote, and I don't think there's any other update. Oh, the Hope Mills Prime Movers, they are doing a food drive. You can put a bag of food outside by your mailbox with canned goods or other items for Thanksgiving, and if you give them or give one of us the address, we'll come by and pick it up. And but that is time sensitive, so that is if they are doing a food drive to donate the food to the alms house.
Commissioner Edwards.
I too would like to repeat what Commissioner Marley and Mayor Pro Tem McRae said, but I'd also like to say that we appreciate everybody that did come out to vote, but I do hope you realize that we have 16,000 people, and I think we ought to get more people involved in the town and what we're doing. And I don't know exactly how we're going to do it, but we didn't have that big of a turnout, but I appreciate all the ones that did come out. And I want to congratulate the 2 commissioners that did win. And I'd like to thank all of you for supporting me in the last 10 years. And I'm going to miss you, but I'm still going to be out here. So thank you, and y'all have a blessed day. Happy Thanksgiving, too.
Commissioner Bellflowers.
I too would like to thank all the citizens that took time to come out and vote. I'd like to thank all those that attended the various events from Heroes Homecoming 9. It was well attended all through the week on various events. And thank all those that came out for Veterans Day, especially the parade downtown. It was a very chilly Saturday morning, but it was well attended with a lot of folks that came out for a parade that we haven't had in probably a year or so, like that one. And lastly, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for reading the proclamation on Veterans Day. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, you're welcome. I too just reiterate everything that has been said, but I do want to give everyone a huge thanks for what the town has done as far as getting Heroes Homecoming events scheduled and the activities that took place. It is also very rewarding to know that Hope Mills shines because of the fact that we have our veterans groups that were also responsible for setting up the parade this year. Grilly Mitchell was very involved as being the chairman for the county, so that Hope Mills got recognition there too. So again, appreciate everything that everyone has done. And next item on our agenda is public hearings. The first thing is annexation number A 2021-05, 4465 Calico Street, Hope Mills, lot number 2, Cotton Mill Village, Plat Book 81, page 98. And I'll turn it over to Mr. McLaughlin.
Hello, Madam Mayor and Board. As what happens with customary annexations, this is the final public hearing where we're asking for your consideration. You should have in your packets the memo from Plan Review. This is an annexation of a specific piece of property with a house on it. This is not a proposed It's not a project tied to any proposed construction. It's just basically us annexing a piece of property. And you also have with this agenda item a request to start the initial zoning process with the county.
Okay. At this time, is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this annexation? Anyone opposed to this annexation? Hearing none,
Motion to close the public hearing.
public hearing is closed. Now, do we have action from our board?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, we approve annexation A 2021-05 and approval to officially request the initial zoning of the land to R7.5/R10, single family residential district.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed, thank you.
Thanks.
This time we have public comments, and just remind that public comments are limited to 3 minutes, and if you will come to the microphone, state your name and address. And at this time, Brenda Warren.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Brenda Warren, and I live at 3200 Big Pine Drive here in Hope Mills, North Carolina. And I'm here to talk about, bringing to y'all attention about the homeless problem that we have. And it's just a couple, we had a petition go around, and there's a couple of things I'd like to read to you. We, the Undecided, has drawn up this petition in regards to many homeless people living in the woods here. Below is a list of complaints ranging from disturbing the peace to illegal activities. The homeless people have little or no respect for our complex. Sometimes they're trespassing and invading in our building. They're using our laundry rooms. They're bathing naked. They're using our screen and porch, frightening residents. Using our vending machines. We can't keep any snacks in our vending machine. Rumbling through the dumpsters and the garbage, making fires in the woods there. The odor from their waste pits is terrible. We have indecent exposure. I have where someone did a police report for the indecent exposure. We have also a homeless sex offender. His name is Rustin Pope. He's registered with the address as the wooded area at the Big Pine Drive. He is seen regularly on the resident walkway of our property. This is disconcerting not only to our residents, but it is a concern for our visiting children. I have here the petition that was signed. The majority of the residents signed it, and you could read what I just read, and there's some more complaints. Please, we need y'all help with this problem, and we're bringing this to y'all because they supposed to have the police make rounds, but we hardly ever see the police making rounds, and we're very concerned with this problem. So,
Do you want
thank you for your
our
attention.
Mr. Mazeros, could she give you that information, and then that way our town manager will accept that information,
Okay.
and then he will get with you.
Okay.
Okay.
There's other situations, but because I'm limited from speaking too long, I
Okay.
have it all included.
Appreciate you coming in and giving us that information.
Thank
Sorry
you.
it's happening, and then our town manager can look into the information you provide.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mhm.
Councilman.
Next, we have our consent agenda. Is there anything that you would like moved from our consent agenda to new business?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move item C, and the reason why is because of transparency and public awareness.
Any other item that you'd like moved to consent agenda? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, moving item C to new business, where it would become item D under new business?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Under old business, consideration of a draft ordinance prohibiting large trucks on residential streets. This is the second reading of the draft ordinance. So, who turned over to Mr. Hartzog?
As you may recall, we introduced this ordinance at the last meeting, but because it was the day of first introduction, we couldn't vote on it at that meeting. So this is the same ordinance that we discussed and reviewed at the last meeting. And now please vote on it, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Do we have a map?
We do not have it ready for presentation.
Okay.
We are working on it.
The concept of the ordinance will allow us to later create the maps, which will of course come before the board for approval.
Okay. Okay, is there any other questions or discussion from the board? Anyone have anything they'd like to ask Attorney Hartzog?
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to approve ordinance number S 2021-12.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Next, we have discussion and consideration regarding sustainable recommendations to replace the current log boom buoy device on Hope Mills Lake. And this was requested by Commissioner Bellflowers.
Thank you, Mayor. The main reason I requested this item is because now we're in 3 different periods where that existing log boom has been severed or broken apart. And I know that some time ago, back in August or September, that we discussed some repair issues that we were going to do to that. And that's why I sent the email to Scott, is because I feel that it's a very important, it is a public safety issue. Because any kind of dams are important. So in my opinion, it's a public safety issue to at least safeguard the dam. So I'm looking for recommendations where I guess I'm asking for those. We talked about them in August. I haven't seen any recommendations until I sent the emails now. And since we're getting ready to go into the winter periods where January would be the time to, if we're going to fix this thing, would be the time to fix it before we get into the spring and summer when the lake reopens next year. So do we have any recommendations, Scott?
Sure, so now with the fire department staff, the deputy chief and chief, and the Maryland Public Works as well, our recommendation would be, because it is not a swimmer issue, the log buoy doesn't even technically act as a log buoy because of the height of the buoy. So most of the debris and things just freely flow across it. It's actually, it's pretty unsightly. It doesn't do anything with the swimmer, so our recommendation is to remove the entire system as it is, to put in 1 or 2 of these buoys that say no boats.
Okay.
It might be a different issue if we had like ranger boats or power boats that go fast. Most of the staff that has been in the water up to the dam, in a non-flood emergency type of a situation, you can actually, we don't want to encourage this, but you could actually swim up right next to the overflow, and it doesn't pull you over. It's not a safety type of issue. So we want to have some kind of a delineation that no boats, no swimmers. Swimmers should never be outside the swim area anyway. It is a swim at your own risk lake. But we would recommend to do 2 of these buoys, which would be direct buoys to the current acres.
Mhm.
And you're correct, the January is about the time that we typically do repairs and drainage.
Right.
We haven't done those types of things, we have repaired it 3 or 4 times since I've been here, and it is broken currently.
Mhm.
So I think, we've talked about that, that would be our recommendation, is to remove the current system, put up the warning buoys, and then it does have a better appearance, it does keep the same type of a safety
Mhm.
presence issue, and we would want to, that's not something we have budgeted, but we could figure out a way to make this $1,200 buoys, figure
Mhm.
out how to make it with a chain or something of that nature that's gonna last more than the current cable system.
Well, even signage would be better than what we have down there now, which has broken, at least 3, 4 different times over the past 4 years. So, all right.
So if you would choose to do a motion to remove the current system and to purchase the warning buoys like this, we could get that implemented and taken care of.
Okay. Well, Mayor, I'll make that motion on the town manager's directive to remove the entire, the system we have down there now is completely broken, and it needs to be removed. I don't think it can be repaired probably anymore. It'd be cost prohibitive to do it, because it's a buoy system that was designed for a previous built dam that's long gone. Then it sat in storage for years and dry rotted, and then it was placed back out on a smaller dam, the right size dam, and it's just been breaking ever since. But if signage is the way to go, which there's got to be some type of safety measures there. And if we want to use the signage and remove that buoy system, okay. So, Madam Mayor, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion is to remove the current system and to give the town manager authorization to purchase the gym buoys, which would give you authorization to go ahead and take care of it.
The gym buoy, fast water buoy with label white, and it's $5.99 each. And we're
Okay.
going to purchase 2 of them.
Correct. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Thank you much. Do we need to do a budget amendment for that, Drew, or can you, Mr. Holland, or just wait till? Okay, so you can bring a budget amendment back to the board. Okay, thank you. All right, next we have, under new business, consideration of authorizing the town manager to execute a contract with Home Repairs Contracting to replace windows at the Trade Street Museum and approve the associated budget amendment number 12. And that budget amendment is in your packet, and this would be for the Trade Street House, and the amount would be $9,600. Discussion? Scott,
I don't have any questions, Madam Mayor, but I'll make the motion.
we had,
I have a,
Oh, sorry.
No, I had a discussion about the conversation being that this money is supposed to be moved, like it's this money that we're supposed to already have budgeted for this. This is a completely new, this will come out of fund balance, correct?
They're asking about the money coming out of fund balance for the HVAC.
Let me pull that amendment up. This one for 9,600. Yeah, we're just gonna pull those funds out of fund balance.
But that's Drew, that will come from the Historical Preservation Committee.
Yes, that's why it's coming out of fund
Yes,
balance. It'll come
prior
that
funding.
amount that's been set aside.
Yeah.
For the historical committee is coming out of there.
That balance, Mayor Pro Tem, is about 79,000, what's left. So these 2 items here will be
And I believe
taxed.
the next one for
Well, yeah, these 2 items here
13.9
will be taxed against that
is coming against
79,000.
that too, so. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question earlier.
did that answer your question, Mayor Pro Tem?
I guess so. I guess so.
I mean, I have a copy of the budget if you want to see it. Let me dig it out here. I know it's here.
And what was the holdup with the museum? Like, why do we, because when I ran for office 2 years ago, we were talking about this museum, and we're still talking about it.
So my understanding is they allocated all of the work and input into the chapel, and they were gonna postpone all of the work related to the museum until that was completed, is my understanding. I wasn't here, but that's what I read and been told. The chapel is nearly complete, and the construction project was bid out to do the restrooms there. And that is a budgeted project for this fiscal year. I believe that's about $180,000 project. So really, there is no obligated funds for the museum. They're trying to get through the bathroom project that's been bid out. I don't believe it's been let. Marco's not here this evening. So those projects are obviously, multiple years in budget priority, and for me, it's like, we come in and I look at our obligated budget and our document that we have for this year, and a lot of these things that are being brought to us are not in that budget document. They're coming from previous carry forward type funding, that's listed. We don't generally do that with town departments. It's the council's decision how they address that, by taking it from fund balance, or saying that we don't go from that list anymore. It's hard when previous councils and commissions obligate funds and things, and then they're not done, and then we don't have the new budget, and, that's why it comes back. That's why these continue to come back, because if we choose to do those things, they need budget appropriation and amendment, because it's not, a lot of those things are not in the actual budget. Does that help clarify that a little bit? Obviously there's several department heads that have way more knowledge than I do, and several of you probably do as well. But my job is to implement the will of the council. So as a group, you need to direct me how not to proceed.
But also, Mayor Pro Tem, the windows we're talking about, I think they're wood rot. So, and I mean, we own the building. So it's either we repair them, or they're just going to continue to get worse. I mean, and the HPC found them the last time they were down there for a meeting. And then we informed the town manager about the wood rot around these windows. But, I mean, we still own the building.
So where, other than the windows, where are we financially with finishing that museum? Because what I don't want to do is keep putting money into it and it keeps sitting there and we never do anything with it. And then we go in there and something else has dry rotted. And then we got to keep going fixing it till we.
My understanding, the chapel was the focus, and that's nearly completed. Not all complete. And the bathroom is the priority for this budget year. The museum's, my understanding, is postponed, and we did have funds done last year with the ADA and the steps and some other projects. And then these are new items with the windows and that type of thing. It's an unfunded mandate, so if you choose to fund these and do these things, you can definitely. At the last meeting, it sounded like you wanted us to investigate and get your quote, so that's what the department head did. And this is the recommendation coming forward with our quote. It's up to you whether or not you accept and move forward on that or not.
Is this something that could wait till the budget time?
I mean, it's not a top priority, but it's an issue that
We'd-
eventually if we keep that building, we will have to address it. So
My concern is that our other committees do not direct the board how to spend money and come to the board with, like for instance, Parks and Rec Committee has not directed us to do something in particular. And I don't know that this is something that we should start as a continuance of, where we're spending money that we could have put this in the budget and have it prioritized, so this would be the next thing, because my understanding was the priority was the church, and that the museum would be there the next priority. That's the only comment that I would have in reference to this.
Well,
Mayor.
Madam Mayor, if it hadn't have been, if the HPC hadn't have been down there for a meeting, it wouldn't be an amendment because they wouldn't have seen it. But it's this window right around the windows. So, I mean, you could go either way. You could wait. It's going to get worse. Or you can repair it now. I mean, that's the only reason why that's is here. And you know, the next agenda item addresses the chapel. So,
My only other thought I would have to address it, and I'll let the commissioners decide, would be that since we know there's other projects to be done on that house, would it not make financial sense to wait and do it all at one time instead of doing it piecemeal, because each piecemeal job costs and it continues to rise. That's, again, I'm just concerned that we're throwing dollars at it, and then there'll be something else that's got to be done because it's not really in a state of being ready to be used as it is. But any other comments?
I have something.
Yes, sir.
So, this could be for the manager or Drew. So how do we end up with rolling funds over year to year for the appearance committee? I mean, how did that come about? How did we get in this situation? And my next thing is we need to rectify that, and we need to fix that so we don't have this problem again. And each year, if there's stuff to be done, they need to submit a budget like other committees do. And we need to go year to year on this, and anything not spent needs to come back and not roll over. That's how we're in this dilemma now, because we've rolled funds over from year to year. I didn't think you could do that.
We try to not do that with the departments. So the committee that worked on this, I believe, felt like they had funds and they had a project that didn't get completed. And I guess, you know, that obviously I'm coming and inheriting the budget book. The night I started, they said we were about this budget book, and it's hard to comment on that, right, being brand new. They did a lot of work and input and to write the budget, and my job is to implement that budget. So yeah, my recommendation would be, you know, the police department and administration don't roll funds if we don't use them. It goes back to the zero base. We have to prioritize and get authorization
Well,
each budget cycle.
My next thing is I'm hearing two different things, because I'm hearing we're taking it out of the general fund, and then Commissioner Bellflowers is saying there's another budget that this money is coming out of from the appearance committee. So which is it? Or is it?
Historic committee.
So they track that earmark, which is technically a carryover. And so they have been whittling away on that for several
So if it's carryover money, then why is it coming out of the general fund and not in a separate line item for the historic commission? Why come it's not in a separate line item, and why is it coming out of the general fund? If it's coming out of the general fund, it's money not budgeted. If it's coming out of a separate line item that's got carryover funds in it for them,
You're right.
help me understand that.
Yeah, okay. It was confusing when I got here as well. Previous manager, when I first got here, had said the historical committee at that time said that they had, I think it was around $225,000. I'm just from memory here. I believe it's about that much of money that was designated for the chapel and what was going to be the museum, the parish house at that time. That money was set aside specifically for that. When the parish house was tore down and we established the mill house that we were going to purchase, the money that was set aside for the parish house and the chapel was told that that money was designated to them. It's not set up in a project fund. It's not necessarily earmarked in the financial statements, but it's a designation of money that was sitting in fund balance of unspent funds from the year that it was designated for that, which was prior to when I was here. But the manager at that time told me, set it aside as a designation for the historical committee. So I've been tracking it ever since. It's not been necessarily budgeted, but I've tracked it ever since 2016 or 17.
Yeah.
Ever I got here. And so now that money has dwindled from 225 to about 79,000. We've allocated some of these funds, but that's kind of where that carryover has been coming from. It's not budgeted. It was just a designation of money that is sitting in reserves, which is fund balance. And it's all in the general fund. We only have pretty much the general fund, Powell bill fund, stormwater, and the capital project fund that's building the,
So what you're telling me is you've been tracking the money.
I've been tracking it
It's in the
separately.
general fund, but you're tracking that amount separate.
Yes.
So they have enough money to cover these
Can
repairs.
I offer something to this? I think it
That
needs.
money can be kept to be
Okay.
designated. It can be undesignated. It's really the council.
Having been here through two
Been here the whole time.
previous town managers, and also the other finance officer, and also a different public works director, I can tell you, if you want to go back to the history of it, we paid a company to come and give us a plan for the parsonage and a plan for the church and a plan for the parking lot. And I think stormwater got involved because of the parking lot. There were stormwater issues on Patterson Street. We actually put the project out for bid, the entire project. And that bid came back, and a company got it that I can't remember the name of the company, but you could track that back. A company got the bid. We authorized the bid. The board approved that bid for that amount of money, and it was over $250,000, over more than $250,000. I think it was 283. Am I right? I don't remember, Mr. Cisco, but I know that the amount of money was designated by that bid. We then found out we did not have the church property. So then what happened, we kept that contract for over a year, and then we got out of the contract. The company was most generous and allowed us to separate ourselves from that contract because our town manager did not want to start one project while the church wasn't ours. So the money that was designated for that project was for that specific reason and that specific bid. How it
Probably
got...
should have been canceled at that time.
It should have been canceled. That money should have been absorbed back into the budget, back into the general fund. It should have never been carried over for anything because it was intended for that bid process.
Right.
And then that RFP was done, and we did, and I wish I could remember the name of the company, but they were local, and they were just very nice, and we got out of the contract. The decision was made through historic committee pressure and our town manager's decision to carry it over.
Right, designate those funds.
And they should have never been designated. Legally, those funds should have been taken and put back into the
That would have been the
coffers,
normal thing.
because that's what you do when you rescind a bid or you don't keep a bid. The money goes back for the purpose until you have to open that bid back up again, and that's where we are. And and that's how it's progressed to where we are today, is always thinking they had money to spend, and dictating to the town that they did. But if you track it back, you'll find that really that money should have never been designated outside of what the purpose was for that bid.
The previous
Mayor.
management had me tracked.
Right.
and designated.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Say something. So, I agree with Commissioner Bellflowers about the town owning the building. If it needs to be fixed, it needs to be fixed. But it's like we're giving one committee a checkbook. I want to see these projects done just like the historic committee wants to see them done. I want the church finished. I want the museum done. I want the bathrooms. I want all that. I'm in favor of all that. But I think what needs to happen, and I'm surprised we don't get findings on our audit for that. I don't know how we don't, but I would like to see this money somehow or another make its way back to where it needs to be, and then budget process, just like every other committee, they can budget for what they want throughout the year, and it'll go through Scott and his recommendation back to this board in the budget.
Just to let you know, it wouldn't be an audit finding, because I'm still tracking it as it should be the correct way.
Yeah. It's
a
But
line
it's just
item.
not a normal thing to do as far as, say, town policy.
Yeah, so
There's nothing wrong.
So is these repairs something, because it seems like a meeting before one of the last meetings came up about the piano. They wanted the piano redone. So we agreed to do that. Now this meeting, it's another 13 plus 9. I mean, so what's at the next meeting? Is there going to be something every meeting until they get this money spent? But if these repairs are needed to save the structural stability of the building, so if the window frames are rotted out, it don't rot the wall out with it and everything else, then I agree. I'll support his motion to have it fixed if the money's there. And you're telling me that money's there, but after this motion, if it passes, I want that money. I'll make another motion. I want that money back into the general fund like it should be. And then next thing that gets repaired is going to be at budget time.
Okay, you can make both of those.
Is that fair?
Can I make one more comment? I would like to say I supported the museum because that is what the previous board did. I don't think it's a good investment. I don't think it's a good use of funds. I think we could be using that fund for historic preservation and revitalization in a smarter manner. I don't support it anymore. I think it's $9,600. It's going to turn into $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. Brings no return back to the town. I think it was a bad investment. I don't support it anymore.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Marley, this is a copy of how Drew's been tracking this funding. I know because I requested. Also taxed on this budget was the storage unit that we have with all the historical items that's been there for a number of years. Drew, and that's $4,800 a year for that storage of all that stuff that's in that unit to go into that museum. And that amount is taxed on that set aside allotment money as well. So, but was one thing that the mayor left out, and I want to make sure that I get it corrected here, is that part of the approval of the dam permit, part of that permit required the town to establish a museum. It's there in the permit. If I knew I was going to need that, I would have it tonight and read it. But that is partly why this money was approved in the very beginning, to save the chapel. And at that point, the parish house was going to be the museum, and it was contingent right with the dam permit. I used to have a copy of it laying here because I had to go through it so many times. But that was part of why that happened. And then the parish house was no longer a viable building for the museum. Still, the town is obligated to establish a museum because it is part of the dam permit and through mitigation.
Okay, Commissioner Bellflowers.
Now, am I correct, Mayor?
No.
Well, let's talk about it.
No, what I was going to tell you, part of the mitigation is that we would have, and we have 3 phases. Hope Mills Lake Part 1, Hope Mills Lake Part 2, and Hope Mills Lake Part 3, which is Heritage Park. Heritage Park is that museum piece, and when Withers and Ravenel did that report and did that whole program, they came back with this is what it's going to look like, and we were approved based on those 3 pieces of that plan. What happened with Heritage Park and what happened with Hope Mills Lake Part 2 is it was changed by a board. And when that change took place, then Hope Mills Heritage Park remained. And if you look at Heritage Park, it's even that part of a museum is the foundation of the old mill. That is part of the museum staple, if you'll go back and look.
I disagree, Mayor.
Okay, well, it's fine. But
I
where we are
disagree.
now is we need to decide what are we going to do with this current motion. You've got a motion on the floor to spend $9,600.
For discussion, I'd like to ask the manager a question.
Okay.
Sir, can we have the Public Works Director step up to the mic for a question? Can we have the Public Works Director step up to the mic for a question? Are these repairs needed? Are they timely? Are they needed now? Or is it something that can wait?
Or we're talking about the windows at
The
the Trade Street
windows
building?
and and while you're up here, the next item on the agenda for the repairs to the church.
The first item, the windows at the Trade Street building are needed. Those windows they are showing signs of water rot, and if we don't replace them, it's just going to continue to get worse. And like you mentioned earlier, the walls will start rotting, and then we'll have a larger repair to make. The second one has to do with the chapel are not absolutely needed. There's the repairs for the pews that the Historic Committee wants done, the lights out front. In order to make those lights functional, we have to go in and replace the wiring. So we have to tear out plaster walls and then do all those repairs in order to make that wiring, because the wiring that's in there right now is the old 2-wire cotton insulation, and we can't use those. So in order to do the restoration on the lights, the outside carriage lights, we have to redo the wiring on the inside. But the simple answer is no, it's not absolutely needed. It's not absolutely needed for the integrity of the building itself. The Trade
Thank you.
Street it is.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
When will the other repairs on Trade Street to that building be done? Do we have a plan for the walls, the inside, the floors, all that stuff that needs to be done on the inside?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. The Historic Committee went and met at that building a couple meetings ago, and they were going to look and make further decisions on what they wanted to do with it, and to my knowledge, at least I've not received any direction what to do with it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you much. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to repair the windows in the Trade Street house at a cost of $9,600. Do we have a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second with a budget amendment also could be part of that motion would be to authorize the town manager to execute a contract with Home Repairs Contract to replace the windows. So is that your complete budget, or your quick motion, Commissioner Bellflowers?
Pardon, Mayor?
To replace the windows, but authorize the town manager to
Yes.
execute the contract. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I do, Mayor Warren.
Okay.
I will go along with the motion if Commissioner Marley will go with the second motion that he had mentioned before about transferring the money.
We can do that. We can do that later on, can't we?
After this one, yeah.
However the mayor says that would be appropriate.
Okay, so we have to vote on this one, the windows. So all in favor of replacing the windows in the Trade Street building, signify by raising your right hand.
Yeah.
All opposed? So 3-1, the windows will be replaced, and the budget amendment has been approved for the town manager to execute. The next item on the agenda is the repairs to the chapel, and these repairs are for an amount of $13,900, and that would be including replace 2 lights in front of the building, rewire and reinstall, repair kneelers on the back of select pews, fix a plaque on the outside of the building, and the total is $13,880. Discussion.
Mayor, I'll start off. In light of the Public Works Director's comment that the repairs to the chapel weren't necessarily emergency and needed at this time, I don't think I can support it.
Madam Mayor, these were the last items that to be repaired with the chapel, and for some reason, they were not part of the original work order on the interior and exterior of the chapel when the contractor was there. That's the reason why these few items were left, because they weren't part of the contract. I don't know why they weren't, but they just didn't, they weren't included at that time. So that's the reason why, and the other reason is because the priority of the chapel to be completely 100% completed. And with this one, that would satisfy that.
Just because I didn't attend the historical committee meeting, what about the 2 rooms at the back that they didn't like? What's the plan for those 2 rooms in the church?
They didn't discuss anything about.
That was something that I heard that was needing to be fixed also.
I don't know.
And I'm not sure what the fix is, but they didn't like the way they were done. They weren't complete.
The minutes from that meeting, and that was November 10th, and I attended that on behalf of Commissioner Legg. The only reference, and Don Cisco was there briefly for a while, but the only mention that they had was the Trade Street house with the windows. They talked about an open house on December 3rd and 4th, and I think, Scott, you have the email for all of that. Porta potties for this open house, they were requesting that. Then there was something about appearance committee and decorations. And then the only other issue is that they stated there's an open sewer line in the back of the chapel in one of those rooms. And I included all of that on the email to you, Scott. Everything that I'm briefing now from the minutes from that meeting, I included all in an email to Scott.
And the flooring, removing the carpet and redoing the floor?
None of that was discussed on November 10th.
But that's going to be another cost to the church.
None of that was here. These are the items.
That's what's coming.
They also discussed the inventory update, committee applications, but that's pretty much the report from the meeting.
So we currently don't have a certificate of occupancy for the structure. And I don't know whether or not the town building official has been in the structure, not recently, to identify if there are outlying issues or not. Like the sewer thing is the first I've heard of that. Those are concerns as we get near closing this out, but I don't have a status update on any of that. For the most part, our focus has been on really trying to do the bathroom portion for this fiscal year.
And did we find out about the access from the church to the bathroom? I know there was some concerns. They didn't want you to touch the steps or the banisters or the doorway.
Yes, ma'am. So the architect has an overlay that's not going to disturb the underlying stairs, but you can't use those existing stairs as part of the new structure. So they have a plan to overtop it and have a new access directly over to that. I don't know if there's been revisions, but that was in the plan, and individuals didn't like that. The architect Repave said this is how we would do this. Those are the little things that we're still working out before we have a completed construction document.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I said my piece a while ago, but we just spent money painting inside that building, fixing everything up. Now, what the public works director is saying, we got to go in there and tear that out and replace the wiring, do all this stuff. I don't know why we didn't catch it at the beginning, but it's not an emergency fix. It's not going to be done by the town's Christmas celebration activities they're wanting to use church for. So it's not going to be fixed by then. I just feel like we just need to wait and budget and fix our budget situation with this committee and to roll over and start budgeting this work next budget year. I'm in total support of finishing the projects. It's not that I'm against it, but I just think we need to do it a different way, a different approach. And that way we're not in a situation like this where we're having these discussions.
I mean, if you're looking to me, I'm new, I
Well, it's our fault too, because we allowed it to happen. Us as a board allowed that to happen. And we shouldn't have done that as being stewards of the town's money. We should not have allowed that to happen, and that's as much this board's fault and previous board's faults as it is anybody else. So I want to make it right tonight.
And I would say, you know, we've had discussions with staff of, hey, this earmark that we're tracking, maybe we allocate the whole remaining balance of that towards the bathroom project, which is a minor portion of that, and eliminate all the tracking of it, or you abolish the tracking of the funds in this method, because there's no money to support other than taking from the general fund reserve to pay for those things, and yet you have a committee that continues to contact staff and deal with issues, and it's like they do have their own budget. The only way to eliminate that is a motion from this council to say, no, we're not gonna do that anymore, that's extinguished, let's move on, and they can bring these things up at a later date in the budget process.
Madam Mayor.
Because that's why you keep getting budget amendments. Those are budget amendment means this is not an anticipated budget. These are things we want to do, and it comes to you, and that there has to be a way to pay for these things, right? They can't just continue to extinguish the reserve. They can, but then when you use up your reserve for unanticipated projects, you're left with a smaller reserve, and that's your in charge with that as a legislator of the town, and that's your decision to make.
Well, Madam Mayor, I like to say, and during our budget retreat, we were told we couldn't do anything. We didn't have money for raises. We didn't have money for positions. We couldn't buy a truck for another code enforcement person. We didn't have money for anything, but now we have $80,000 that was just sitting around on the side for some of these other projects, and a lot of stuff that we just budgeted tonight. We did a lot of budget amendments tonight. But and all this time we've had $80,000 just sitting around on the side, and we was in here pinching pennies in that budget meeting, and now all of a sudden we got all this open money that's just been sitting around. I don't agree with it.
Okay, do we have a motion? Do we have action?
Well, I'm gonna make the motion to approve the contract to finish the chapel. We'll probably not get a second, but I'll go ahead and make the motion on behalf of the HPC, and that it would complete the project.
Commissioner Morley did move to deny the request
Okay,
at one.
at one point, so,
Yeah, I said I couldn't support it.
okay. So,
Okay, so that wasn't.
There wasn't a motion. I just said that I couldn't support it. at
okay,
this
so
time.
we have a motion to approve the completion of the repairs that are listed for the chapel and a budget amendment for number 11 for $13,900. Do I have a second? Motion dies for a lack of second. Now, do we have a motion in reference to the remaining balance? Is that what you wanted to?
I'd like to make a motion that we take the remaining balance after the budget amendment that we did approve tonight and have the manager fix however it needs to be. Help me out, Drew. Tell me what I'm trying to say. Undesignate those funds and to the general fund.
Okay, so I have a motion to undesignate the remaining funds. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I just want to go on the record, Madam Mayor, that these funds were authorized and designated by prior boards at a time when we had the chapel and a museum that was scheduled at that period of time. Just going to go on the record and say that because that museum is tied, again, I will say, to the dam permit. And that's why the funds were established. That's why they were designated. And that's why through the years, from I think 13 to 15 to 17 to 19 and now 21, they have just been a rollover fund balance through these years. And if you look at that budget, they have paid for all the repairs that have been taxed against the chapel, against the removal of the parish house, Now they have been taxed against repairing that chapel completely, almost, with these remaining items. And when the parish house was demolished, that's when the Trade Street house was purchased by the town as the museum site. So that's the historical piece of it.
No, we all had that mill house was purchased before I got into
Way
on
back
the
there.
board.
This
So
has been
the
seven-
parish house happened 2020. This museum, we were talking about this museum and had purchased it at least in 2019. I know.
Oh,
for
it was a
fact.
bit further back than that.
Right, so we didn't buy it after the demolition of the
No,
parish
it was
house.
purchased before.
Right.
It was purchased before. But we own the building. No matter how it goes forward, we own that building, and if we don't repair and take care of that building, then it's going to end up in the same disrepair as the parish house, and it too will be removed.
We made the motion to fix the windows. We just didn't approve the church repair. We approved the
I got it.
amendment to fix.
Yeah, but I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, so the next, you have a motion, we have a motion to remove the title for the designated funds and have a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed?
No.
Okay, 3-1. All right, next is consideration, that was number B, we just took care of that. Okay, discussion and possible action concerning development, services, restructure, and fee schedule changes. And I'll give that to Mr. Holland. No, Mr. Mazzaros. You just got up and I figured you were,
I'm just giving y'all.
okay, giving us information.
So this is kind of a larger undertaking than just revising the fee schedule. Here's handing out the proposed fee revisions, as well as what the current actual fees are.
Current
I
says
have
original.
I have all the department
Thank you.
heads go through and evaluate their fees, compare it to similar jurisdictions in our area, our size. And basically, most of our fees are about, some are as much as 50% less than a neighboring jurisdiction for the same service. So we're under capturing funding for services we provide on inspections, development services. Park and recreation is the other third big piece. Chancellor McLaughlin, our community and economic development director, the finance manager, and myself met with the county administrator, Mr. Rawls, and the deputy county manager in a discussion about planning. And the county basically stated, through this lengthy discussion we had on multiple issues, that Spring Lake and the town of Hope Mills are large enough cities, they should not be doing all of our planning work and having our hearings, even though the Joint Planning Commission is something they do for most of the cities in the county. And we were a little relieved to hear that, because we were worried going to them saying, hey, we want to take back some of our planning functions would mean an MIA issue and kind of abandoning what the potential for Hope Mills is coming at us down the road. So in doing that, they said, yeah, we would love for you in Spring Lake to take back and, do a lot of your processing, which in turn means our fees come directly to us rather than go to the county. Mr. McLaughlin and the finance director did review the amount for the proposed increases and the projected increases in our fees coming directly to us, which of course means some of that work will come to us with additional planning needs. So roughly, in the coming year, we project $180,000 just from the stuff that we did this year for next year. Potentially up to $45,000 of the $65,000 that we pay the county for those services through an agreement, and the mutual agreement for services is based on the calculation factor, which we still pay even if we don't utilize those services to some degree. So we're looking at about $230,000 cost savings, or revenue generation from revising these fees and doing the planning services in-house. Now, we do understand we would have to have an additional planner. That planner would present to the county instead of the county officials presenting at the Joint Planning Commission. That would be our staff member presenting all of our items at their meetings. And down the road, we would potentially want to have a reestablishment of the planning commission in-house like it was many years ago. I think they prefer that. We don't see that happening immediately. That might be a year or two down the road. But for the time being, we do have a need for a GIS planner, some reorganization within community development. Mr. McLaughlin oversees all of our planning process, so we would look at inspections, planning, all of the functions that he oversees, and tying that to some changes in the structure internally, which would mean adjusting the job duties, it would mean hiring a planner, and then of course it means adopting this fee schedule. I realize that, this is coming to you, they are nominal fee changes. They're highlighted in the red. They are still below what most of the entities in our area charge, but they're based on what everybody else is doing. So when you do a zoning permit, whether it's Spring Lake or Fayetteville or whatever, those people that work in that industry are accustomed to paying a standardized rate. So when they come to us, that is a severely discounted rate. Our services are still the same service costing our taxpayers the same amount of money. So we did take a stab at revising this, but not to the high level. Our recommendation is to adopt the fee schedule. I would say that if you accept this and make a motion, my motion would be to ask for all monetary fees in our code to be referred to in the fee schedule so that we don't have to do a code amendment. And every time we say, oh, it's $8, not $12, not $6, we have to go back to the code ordinance every time. So if we go through this document and have the codifier put out everywhere we have an actual dollar now and put in refer to the fee schedule, very similar to the math in the truck route, and kind of clean up some of that housekeeping, and then we will bring you a revised fee schedule like we do with the budget every year. But these are proposed changes we ask to implement effective January 1. We do have some new software for inspections. We're going to online system here, where you can pay online. It generates some calculation automatically. That's how we found some of our errors in our calculations with the building fees. So what I would ask for you is to include that motion, if you so choose, to actually have that fee item fixed in the code to allow us to begin advertising and try to hire a planner. To be honest, our planning department, Chancellor, is doing the work of some of the cities similar our size us have 7 or 8 people. It's gonna be help that we need. We need an inspector that we're gonna try to propose in July and bring to you in the next budget. I don't wanna get you all tangled up into the whole department running, but in order to do what the county and us mutually agree we should do, we need to start getting that planner hired and start doing that work process internally, which is gonna pay for itself through the fee generation and from the cost savings. So it's not gonna be additional revenue outlay. There is a proposed way to pay for that. I probably missed several things. Mr. McLaughlin or Mr. Perry, do you want to add something? It's kind of a big topic.
Hello, Mayor, Board. Ultimately, Scott covered the basis of it. We initially met with the county about 2 months ago, and they ironically expressed an interest in us taking on more services for our planning functions. At the same time, I'm not sure if anyone is aware, but they're experiencing a significant reduction in their staff as well. So with the amount of development that we see coming, we wanted to come up with a way that would allow some of these departments to be more sustainable, which is why we chose to identify increased revenues through fees. So this would not be us coming to the board asking for additional funding out of the general fund. This is us identifying viable avenues of revenues that we can actually count on an annual basis. One of those major sources of revenue for us is tied to some of the services that we're going to actually potentially take over, application intake. So as you guys see, every hearing I'm presenting about 3 or 4 rezoning cases, 3 or 4 site plan amendment cases. Those are about 400 a pop that we aren't getting at all. Those fees go directly to the county. So we're talking about almost a $30,000 increase in fees or revenues just with us taking in our application. So it's something I think that we need to do. We had conversations about studying this about maybe 6 months ago. We had met with the county to deal with, I think it was that underground sewer issue with the library. And
Yeah.
this came up.
Mhm.
And since then, we've been trying to figure out some realistic ways to be able to grow in a way that makes sense that we are able to do. The two main functions that we will not actually take up from the county would be planning board and then maintaining a officially operational GIS system. That would be very expensive. The county is on board with this. They're actually very eager to possibly try to help us make a smooth transition into this. To give you an idea with GIS, we're having conversations with them that they maintain the data, but the GIS planner would be able to have access to the system to make changes as they see fit. This is more of us, because we're still going to be connected with the county. We still have our MIA, our annexation agreement with PwC will remain intact. So for all intents and purposes, the only main change would be us intaking all our applications. But what that really does is it finally closes that development gap where we will no longer have to deal with developers going to the county and coming to for approvals for planning and coming to Town of Hope Mills for permitting. This moves to us into an avenue where it's a one-stop shop. You are dealing with Hope Mills specifically from a planning standpoint, from a permitting standpoint, from the very beginning of the project to the very end, and there is no gap. Like I said, we still have our MIA relationship, and the county has expressed definitely support with that remaining intact, but these are things that we feel that we can realistically move towards in a way that I think one thing that will make sense is that next budget season, because what we're trying to do is create an avenue where these departments are self-sustainable. What that does is it indirectly may reduce some of the ask at budget season when it's time, because as you were stating before, there were a lot of the needs that were requested from a lot of the departments. Most of them were staff level needs. So this is a way to maybe fulfill that request without it actually coming from the budget.
Okay, any other questions?
I got two, Mayor.
All right.
And thanks, Chancellor, for coming up, because these two questions were probably going to go to you.
Okay.
Outside of GIS, when do we anticipate the county transitioning all services to us? That's the first question. I got a second one.
Basically, with this move, if approved tonight, the only two services they would remain with the county would be GIS in terms of the data storage, and then planning board. We haven't had discussions on when that would be, because the GIS piece, that would be mean we would have to purchase not only an ArcView license, but to have the data and size to maintain the entire system, which is be pretty large undertaking. I do think the planning board piece would be probably easier. If you recall, we had our own zoning board about maybe 8 years ago, and I think we dissolved it to go to planning board. But if most of you recall, there was a time where our board served as the Board of Adjustment.
Right.
We have had conversations with our Board of Adjustment, maybe double rolling as our planning board when we are comfortable taking that step. I don't have a timeline on that, but I do know that the county is fully on board with helping us make a very smooth transition to that. When we talked about the services in terms of what we're taking, application intake, plat approval, typical analysis, advertising, and things of that nature, those are the things we take over now. But I think we're all in agreement, even the county, saying that, look, I think with GIS, we'll give you possibly access to the system, and planning board, they will continue to actually give recommendations, but we would probably make the presentations at planning board. I already staff planning board anyway, but I only speak if there's a case in opposition or someone speaking in opposition, but we may take a more active role at planning board from a staffing standpoint, which is, I think, it's very realistic as well.
Our planning board was also within my 10 years here, and the reason that we dissolved it was an additional step. things would come to us, go to the planning board, come back to us, and it meant that an additional 45 days was added to anything. So our planning board was just a step in between bringing it to our board. So it wasn't that we were doing all the work. We were just looking at the approval part coming back to us. And so that's the reason that board, it was actually because we first had started experiencing growth, and we found that we were having major issues because of the delayed times. You know, if you missed a hearing date at the planning board and it had to come back to our planning board, it was just complicated things. So, and we didn't have the availability of the things and the systems and mapping like they did. So that was the reason. But I agree, now we're at the stage that it's makes more sense for us to do it. Plus financially, it's a good thing.
Yeah, and so ultimately, whenever we do make the change with planning board, it would just change the fact that the planning board cases are heard by us.
Yeah.
Doesn't create an additional hearing date or additional step. But I want to stress that these are realistic things that I think can be done. I think we have to be pretty meticulous on how we're doing it, and we do it in a way where it's possible for us to be able to sustain this growth. We were looking at, I was dealing with an initial zoning that I submitted to the county last week, and my eyes got big when I looked at the resolution numbers. 25 annexations last year. I don't think we've ever had that number, but with the amount of development that we see coming, there's still going to be a significant amount of development coming. If you look at some of the comparable staff levels, county planning typically operates with 8. They are down to about 3 or 4. City of Fayetteville, code enforcement, they have 8. We have 2. Inspections, which is very eye-opening, they have about 18. We have 2. Planning, they have about 20 planners. We have 1. If you're looking at, so in terms of code enforcement, inspections, and planning here at the town, we only have 5 employees. And we're not the size of Fayetteville, but I do think we're large enough we can talk about having some small increases at staff levels. And that's basically what this is about. But I want to make sure I stress that this is being done in a way that creates the revenues from within, so it lessens the ask on them.
Chancellor, are we going to have to pay the county for GIS service?
No, we hadn't had the conversation on intergovernmental. Rawls and I kind of jokingly brought that up the other week, but their intergovernmental agreement pays us on a 1.3 calculator based on our population. But the realistic conversation is if we're severely reducing the level of services they're providing for us, I do think we do have that conversation.
Yeah.
I wouldn't look at it in terms of us being charged for GIS or planning board. I would look at it as us realizing that if they're still doing some work for us, then there needs to be some monies that still go to the county. And I think what that number is, we're actually working through that now.
My follow-up question, Mayor, thank you, is we will continue to have a seat on the joint planning board?
Yes, that's not going to change at all. So the only thing that nothing's going to change on planning board.
Okay.
Yes, until the only planning board change will come when we feel in unison that we're ready to take over the planning board operations.
Okay.
But up until that point, Sue Moody remains as our liaison. I talk to her every day. But she's great for the planning board, but that wouldn't change at all.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the new development services structure and the fee schedule changes?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we go with the manager's recommendations and approval of the new development services structure and fee schedule changes.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand.
Oh, wait a minute. Yes.
Seeing none opposed. The next item on our agenda is we moved item C from our consent agenda. It's a consideration of approval of budget amendment number 14 for $171,500. Amendment to cover payment to the North Carolina State Retirement System. This was discussed with the BOC at the October 18th closed session. And Commissioner Bellflowers, you requested this to be moved So
And
I'll turn it
thank you,
over to
Mayor. And the reason why is because of transparency and public awareness. I mean, we're not talking about $7.11 here. We're talking about $171.05. And I think that the public needs an explanation of exactly why we're paying $171,500 amendment to the NC state retirement system. So it's more for public awareness than it is for the briefing that the board received in closed session was one session. But I think we owe it also to the taxpayers of exactly why we're having to pay $171,500. So that's the reason why I wanted it pulled. It's because it's a large amount. It should have public awareness, and we should be transparent in every dollar that we spend. So with that direction, it would be the explanation would either have to come from Scott or Dan.
Would you like me to go print out the spreadsheet that I got from the architect this afternoon detailing the change order schedule? I can pull that up. Drew and I didn't, that's.
No. This is
I
the,
would put that up. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, and we're not talking about the,
sorry.
no, we're not talking about change 4, no.
I was talking about change 5.
Or change 5.
now this is budget
No.
amendment number 14.
Okay, sorry about that, so the state reached out to us on the calculation on an employee that, when we submit for retirement, they do a calculation. They came back to us, they said, hey, there's a change that's required in the calculation, an error, and they provided us an amount that's due. I believe it's already been paid. And we did meet in closed session on that item. We did approve to move forward with that and then do the subsequent budget amendment. So this basically covers an obligation the town has for retirement of a former employee.
Okay.
I don't, without going into the closed session details, that is the overview of why this obligation is being presented publicly.
And that's the transparency piece, Mayor, that I'm talking about. It's just the simple explanation of why that $171,500 is on the agenda and why it was discussed the way that it was. Okay?
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve this item that was on the consent agenda? Because it's been removed from consent agenda, it now has to have its own approval.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve budget amendment number 14 for $171,500. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. The next item on the agenda is the new maps, the redistricting maps. There are copies, and I do have an additional copy for you that if you didn't print yours behind the next tab, this is the redistricting maps. And the reason why I thought this was important is I did attend a meeting in reference to it. Our Senate district for Hope Mills is now going to be District 21, and that will encompass most of Cumberland County and Moore County. And what will happen is we won't be sharing with Hope County like we have before. And then Senator Deviere's district will be District 19, and it is basically Fayetteville and the population center of our county. And that's the Senate district, so that there is an incumbent in Moore County. He did speak at our Mayor's Coalition meeting. He came because he wanted us to know that he would be the representative for the current District 21. Also, we have our congressional district, which is a plus for us this year in that we don't have our congressional district being stretched all across different counties. We actually are in a 4-county block, which is Harnett, Johnston, Cumberland, and Sampson. So our congressional delegate will actually represent all of us. Our county will not be split. The good news there is that this is District 4, and the fact is that it'll give us an opportunity. These same counties are part of our COG. So it makes good sense for us to have our congressional representative from there. And the last but not least is our House districts. And our representative would continue to be the District 45, which would be one representative for Hope Mills, and that would be, right now it's Representative Zoka. Representative Wheatley's district has changed a little bit. Representative Richardson's district is a small center of, and basically Fayetteville, and then Representative Lucas's district is basically the Spring Lake area. But our district, Coleman County, has 4 House seats, and the incumbents are all in key places where they should be able to be reelected, but at the same time it does change up just a little bit for Hope Mills. We have a little bit of ours that's shared with other areas, and of course Linden is sharing with a little bit with Stedman. But I just wanted to make you aware of that because in the upcoming election there'll be some changes. There are already some court hearings taking place, or court requests for hearings, because there's been lawsuits filed in reference especially to the bigger districts, and one of those is the Charlotte-Mecklenburg district, and the other would be the Wake County. Those 2 districts are being split, and they don't like the idea of them being split, but it's all about population, and that's the reason. Okay, next we have the manager's report. Do you have anything you'd like to add to the manager's report?
I know, just wanted to thank the staff and the us, I guess it was last week ago appreciate all the support that I've gotten from them and from the council.
Okay. Is anyone?
I have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
Over the past 2 weeks, Scott, I've heard several different issues. One of them was what Commissioner Marley said earlier about the parking. The other one is the tree cutting on the golf course. And I go out there on the golf course myself. So, and I emailed you about why these trees are being cut in the area that they're being cut on in the golf course. Because I went through and I looked at every report, public safety, buildings and grounds, and I didn't see any reference, Parks and Rec even, to the trees being removed from the golf course. And I don't think it was briefed to the board either that the trees were being removed from the golf course. But all of a sudden, there were 2 cut, and now I guess today, are we doing the cutting?
Yes, sir, that's staff time and resources, so we have the tools, resources to do that.
Okay, so our own staff is doing the cutting, and the reason why, what's the reason why they're cutting?
So that area where they're being removed is part of the master plan. We have, first of all, we have 10 ball fields, and we're depending on the school district to do soccer, football, all these recreational sports that we're involved in. And that's literally one of the only places the town owns enough property that we have field space already there we maintain. And taking out those 7 trees opens that whole area up for additional ball. And it was identified in the master plan. So when they initiated that, and I forwarded Marco's response about how they were getting into that and why they were doing it. And so then I went out there and looked at it and said, yeah, this is something that previous council had said, we're gonna get this for the fields. They took down the 2 trees, and so I, hey, gonna keep doing what you've been doing, that's part of the plan. And so they took down these additional trees. They should be stuff removed and graded and get that to be a nice flat area out there for use.
Okay. I went to that area, and I tried to justify exactly what the master plan map looked like. And it really didn't appear that way to me. It was more toward where the aquatic center project would be. But my questions here are, they're in the back part, so how are people going to get there to use these fields? Because we only have that small temporary parking lot that we have in the front. The only access road that we have is to the building. We have no road at all, dedicated road, to go to those fields that, in question that you're talking about. There will be no lighting out there unless we put some lighting up. And then the third thing is, if memory serves me correctly, which I'm sure it does, because I've talked about this thing for 4 years, is that if we do any modifications to that golf course, it triggers turn lanes mandated by DOT. And that's the reason why the temporary parking lot was put there. And I know this because just down the road at a almost complete recreational center that we talk very little, if we talk at all about, called the T.J. Robertson Recreational Center, part of them getting a certificate of occupancy requires turn lanes, which they have approved last year to be built by DOT at the T.J. Robertson Center. So this is what brings me to this issue. And then the last issue is, this is not funded at all.
So,
With the tree removal project.
so it's not really funded when it's staff time and resources. We have equipment to haul it off, agreements to take the.
Okay.
Employee staff members, equipment to do that. These are basically practice fields for sports, so it's not, it's not a high school football game, it's not a sanctioned, we have no practice spaces. T.J. Robinson project is mostly inside basketball.
Mhm.
They have a projected field type thing in the
Yep.
back.
Mhm.
If you walk that side, it is a large undertaking for future ball fields.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what the timeline is on that. But so this was, removing some trees when our staff had additional time and the capability to do it. The parking thing, I just was updated on some of that issue today. I don't know that I'm, don't know that I'm at liberty to talk about the development and project that's coming there, because we do have allocated DOT access. And I can't get into all that because it involves the developer, other projects, multiple property owners. But we do have designated access there. We have multiple access. So those are things to be worked out in the future. But the golf course is a 90-acre property. It is on the frontage and on the top tier, and it is conducive to having, that open space there for multiple purposes. And the trees were identified as being, 7 trees that are problematic. Even when we have our fire trucks and events and things in that region, it's something they had planned. It was before my time, and they did execute on that. I know there are some adjacent neighbors and property owners that don't like that. The town can't always please all of our adjacent neighbors, and we're trying to create space and ball fields and provide opportunity for all the citizens.
So the removal of the trees is tied to a future project development.
It's basically to give us a flat area to have practice fields for soccer, football, or severely.
And we have those flat areas on the left and right side of the temporary parking lot.
So this is where you employ me to work with my departments to allocate resources. I don't necessarily come to you with everything to do. It's been something they've had planned a long time. They executed on it. I went out and looked at it. They understood what they were trying to do, and I said, keep going on it.
It's the first time in 4 years I've heard of it.
I don't know the history. I know that.
And I'd like to argue the point, but thank you, Scott.
Okay, any other questions? At this point, staff comments?
I would just like to comment to the public, if you would like to apply for any of our boards, committees, or commissions, that I need those applications by the end of this month, in order to do the reappointments that we typically do after each election.
The question was asked, does, the time they get them in, is, in other words, if there's somebody that wants to be on Parks and Rec, because I think Parks and Rec is the one that's, for whatever reason, is the favorite one right now. But I know that they were saying the 7 people that are on it, are they guaranteed their same spot, or are they going to be in the whoever gets there first as far as applications go?
Well, that will be up to the appointments committee.
Okay.
Typically, they do give preference to the order that the applications
Okay.
are sent in.
Okay, that was the question that was asked.
That's not a rule.
Okay, all righty. All right, any other staff comments? Anything more?
Madam Mayor.
I did want to say on Friday, well, on Thursday, we're doing a staff Thanksgiving recognition of our employees' 10 years and that type of thing. And then on Friday, the department heads and I are doing a staff retreat. We're going to have a speaker from the Gallup organization. We're going to go over evaluation process and some of the things, my objectives and milestones and things I want kind of target for the coming year. And I don't know if I should officially say that, but our prospective police chief we've offered employment to, he won't be sworn in until the 6th of December. He's going to be there on Friday to participate in it.
Okay.
He's not officially on pay. So we're looking forward to that, and I appreciate you and all of the staff for participating in the program.
Okay, anything, Mr. Hartzog? Nothing? Anything, other staff members? I know, Dr. McQuay, you were
Oh,
going to
no, I
say
was just
something.
going to do the closed motion. Closed
Okay,
session.
okay. All right, this time, do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to enter closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A3, attorney-client privilege, and personnel NCGS 143-318-11A6.
Okay,
Second.
have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed, we'll go to the front conference room. At this time, I'll call our meeting back to order.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to move to seal the minutes of the closed session until such time as the release of the information would no longer frustrate the purpose of the closed session and further no action was taken.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed.
Motion to close.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you very much for coming. We'll see you December 6th. No, we'll see you December 4th.
Is it? I don't.
December 3rd for the Festival of Lights, December 4th for the parade, Christmas parade. And then we'll have the meeting on the 6th, and then we'll have the swearing-ins.